The dirtiest work people did in medieval times, the first light of dawn creeps slowly across the sky, painting the cloud with shades of gold and red, casting their glow on the earth below. The world feels still, as though the land itself is holding its breath, waiting for the rhythm of the day to begin. The village, nestled in the shadow of the distant mountains, stirs to life with the first sounds of the waking world. The soft murmur of the wind rustles the dry leaves that are collected in corners. The distant crow of a rooster rises above the fog, and the smell of wood smoke drifts from chimneys, hanging heavy in the cool air. Yet beneath these fleeting moments of beauty lies a much harsher reality, the raw, unyielding work of survival. As the village begins to stir, so does the boy at the well. His name is forgotten, for no one remembers the names of those who do the dirtiest work. He is but shadow in the corner of a larger, ever-moving world, a world that will never know the toll his labor takes on his young body. His small hands are raw from the work he's done for the past few years, his fingers stiff from dipping the heavy bucket into the depths of the village well. The chill of the water is enough to make him gasp, yet he does not flinch. He's used to the discomfort, the coldness of the water, the strain of lifting the bucket, the quiet groans of his muscles as they protest the constant labor. The boy is nothing but a servant to the village, tasked with this laborious work, so that others may have what they need: food, drink, warmth. The well, with its centuries-old stone walls, has been dug deep into the earth to provide for people, but it also demands much in return. Every morning, before the sun fully rises, the boy is at the well, pulling water from its depths, his hands slick with the slimy residue that coats the old rope. As he pulls the heavy bucket upward, the sound of the rope creaking fills the air. His breath rises in visible clouds, the cool air biting at his exposed skin. He pauses for a moment, letting his weary eyes glance around the village. The low stone cottages with their thatched roofs stand as silent witnesses to the simple, yet brutal life of the people who live within them. The smoke curling from chimneys tells a tale of families huddled together in warmth, eating their simple meals of bread, cheese, and perhaps a bit of salted meat. A rooster crows in the distance, its call echoing over the fields, a reminder that the world outside is waiting for the first light to break through the darkness. But the boy is not part of that world. He is not part of the warmth and the life within the cottages. His body is a reflection of the harshness of his work. Slim, but taut with muscle, his shoulders hunched from years of lifting the heavy buckets, his back bent with the weight of responsibility that has been thrust upon him far too early in life. His face, once innocent and round, has become hardened over time, the skin weathered by exposure to the wind, the cold, and the unrelenting task of serving those who will never notice his sacrifice. The well is his world. Its cool, dark depths are all he knows. He lowers the bucket back into the water, the rope groaning with the weight of its task. The sound of the water splashing as it fills the bucket is like music to his ears, a brief respite from the silence of his labor. The bucket rises slowly, inch by inch, until it is once again at the surface, and he heaves it upward with a grunt of effort. His muscles scream in protest, but he doesn't stop. He cannot stop. He knows that without this work, the village would not survive. It is not the noble work of a knight, nor the celebrated role of a lord or lady. It is the dirtiest work, the unseen work, the unglamorous work that sustains life without ever asking for recognition. The water is clear as it pours into the waiting barrels of the village, the sound of the stream filling the morning air. The boy moves like an automaton, his motions practiced and precise, the task at hand the only thing in his mind. He does not speak, for there is no one to speak to. The village is still asleep, its inhabitants oblivious to the labor that begins each day in the early hours before dawn. They will not hear the creak of the well's rope, nor the soft splash of the water. They will not feel the biting cold of the morning air, nor the weight of the task that falls solely upon his shoulders. As the boy finishes his work, his hands raw and his muscles aching, he steps back and takes a moment to look at the well. Its ancient stones are worn and smooth, shaped by years of weather and use. The iron bucket hangs limp at the side of the well, a reminder of the labor that it demands every day. The boy feels a brief pang of something, perhaps longing, perhaps sorrow, for he knows that this work will never leave him. It will define his life, as it has defined the lives of countless others before him. It is the dirtiest work, work that no one else will do, work that is never acknowledged, never celebrated. It is the kind of work that stains the hands, that leaves no mark on the land but takes its toll on the heart. The boy will grow up to be the one who scrubs the floors of the Lord's castle, the one who cleans the blood from the armor of knights after a battle, the one who tends to the animals that no one else dares to touch. He will serve, but never be seen. His name will not be written in the songs of bards, nor will his deeds be sung of in the halls of the court. But still, he works. He works because there is no other choice. His life is one of silent sacrifice, of constant labor, of giving to others without ever receiving in return. The weight of his service is heavy, but it is the only life he knows. The world above him, the world of knights and lords, of ladies in fine gowns and men in shining armor, is a world he will never be a part of. They will dine on roasted meats and drink fine wine, while he remains below, hidden in the shadows, performing the dirtiest work that ensures their lives continue. As the boy walks away from the well, his feet crunching softly on the frost-covered ground, he looks up at the sky. The first light of day is breaking through the clouds, and for a brief moment, he feels a flicker of hope. Perhaps one day, someone will see him. Perhaps one day, someone will understand the weight of his labor. But he knows better. He knows that the world is not kind to those who toil in silence, to those who work without recognition. And so, he keeps moving, his hands still raw from the labor, his heart heavy with the knowledge that the dirtiest work is the work that sustains life, even as it breaks the spirit. In the days that follow, the boy will return to the well each morning, as he has done for years. His hands will grow even more calloused, his shoulders even more hunched, but he will continue. He will continue because this is the life he was born into. And though he may never be seen, though his labor may never be acknowledged, the water that he pulls from the well will continue to nourish the village. The simple task of gathering water, the dirtiest of work, will sustain the lives of all who live within the walls of this village. And in that, there is a kind of quiet dignity. The boy's labor may never be recognized, but it is the foundation upon which life is built. The dirtiest work is the work that keeps the world moving, the work that sustains even when it is unseen, the work that is never celebrated, yet never truly forgotten. The boy may never hear his name spoken in reverence, but the work he does will echo through the generations. It will become part of the fabric of life, woven into the tapestry of the medieval world. And though it is the dirtiest work, it is the work that holds everything together. Without it, nothing would survive. And so, the boy continues, as he always will, pulling water from the well, his hands raw, his heart heavy with the knowledge that he is the unseen lifeblood of a world that will never acknowledge him. But in that labor, there is grace. And in that grace, there is life. The morning fog hangs heavy over the fields, a thick blanket that muffles the sounds of the waking world. The air is cool and damp, and the earth, still wet from the dew, squelches beneath the weight of each footstep. In the distance, a figure moves slowly through the mist, a solitary farmer, bent low beneath the weight of his tools and his duties. The first light of dawn creeps reluctantly over the horizon, casting long shadows over the land. But for this man, the day has already begun. His name is unknown, for the names of men like him are seldom remembered. He is not a noble, not a lord, not a knight to be sung of in songs. He is a farmer, a man of the soil, bound to the earth by necessity and survival. The land is unforgiving, hard and unyielding, as though it resents the very act of cultivation. The farmer's face is lined with years of toil, his eyes pale and tired, bearing the weight of seasons spent under the harsh sun, fighting against droughts and floods, against disease and famine, against the very land that sustains him. But today, like every other, he works. The smell of wet earth fills his nostrils as he pushes the plow through the soil, the iron teeth scraping against the ground with a noise that echoes in the quiet of the morning. His breath comes in shallow gasps, the effort of his work visible in the strain of his arms, the bending of his back, the small tremor in his hands. His life is defined by this, by the endless cycle of planting, growing, and harvesting. It is a labor that requires everything of him, yet gives little in return. His clothes, once rough-spun and sturdy, have long since begun to fray at the edges. The hem of his tunic is stained with the dark mud of the fields, and his boots, worn thin by years of use, barely hold together. His hands are rough and cracked, the skin thickened and callous from the constant work, grasping the handles of tools, tilling the soil, carrying heavy loads of grain. His fingers are stiff from the cold, from the constant motion, from the unrelenting demands of the land. The smell of the earth is strong, wet, damp, and rich with the decay of fallen leaves and decomposing plants. It is a scent that fills the air and clings to the farmer's skin, his body becoming one with the land as he works. The soil, dark and rich, is both his enemy and his sustenance. Without it, there is no life. With it, he must fight against it each day, his plow cutting through the earth like a blade through flesh. The land demands his sweat, his blood, and sometimes even his soul. But there is no time to stop, no time to rest. The day must be lived, the tasks must be completed, and the harvest must come. The farmer does not pause to reflect on the weight of his labor, on the toll it takes on his body, his spirit. He simply moves, his body an instrument of survival, a cog in a great wheel that turns endlessly forward. There is no space for thought, no room for anything but the task at hand. He has no luxury of reflection, no time to wonder what it might be like to live another life, a life that does not demand such sacrifice. The farmer's eyes wander briefly to the horizon. In the distance, beyond the rolling hills and green fields, the silhouette of a castle looms. Its high walls rise above the land, imposing and silent, a testament to power and wealth. The contrast between the farmer's world and that of the nobility could not be more stark. The farmer's hands are stained with the soil that feeds him, his body bowed under the weight of the earth, while those who dwell in the castle remain untouched by the labor of the land, their hands clean and their lives free from demands of survival. In the castle, the lords and ladies sleep soundly in warm, feathered beds. They feast on rich meats, honeyed wines, and delicacies grown in the very fields the farmer labors over. The contrast between their lives and his is sharp, as though the farmer is bound to the earth by some invisible chain, while the nobility floats above it all, untouched, unbothered by the struggles of those below them. The farmer knows this well. He knows his place in the world. His life is not one of luxury, not one of joy. It is a life of quiet sacrifice, of work that is never acknowledged, never praised, but always necessary. Yet even in the midst of his grueling labor, the farmer feels something stir within him, something small, almost imperceptible, but undeniable. It is a flicker of life, the spark of something deeper that lies beneath the soil, beneath the toil, beneath the endless cycle of work and survival. It is a knowledge that his labor is not in vain, that without him, without the work of the fields, there will be no food, no life, no continuation of the world as it is. For the nobleman who feasts in the castle, the farmer is invisible. His labor is never seen, never celebrated. But without it, there would be no wealth, no feasts, no luxuries. The work of the land is a foundation upon which their lives are built. Yet they remain oblivious to the price that is paid for that foundation. The farmer is just another nameless laborer, his body bent with the weight of the earth, his back broken by the endless work that is his only purpose. But the farmer does not seek recognition, nor does he long for the life of the nobility. He has long accepted his place in the world. His work is his duty, and duty is what defines him. It is the only thing that keeps him going, the knowledge that he is necessary, that his labor is vital to the survival of the village, the kingdom, the world. There is no glory in his work, no honor, no celebration. There is only the task, the labor, the sweat of his brow, the dirt on his hands. The hours stretch on, the sun climbing higher in the sky, casting its warm glow over the fields. The farmer does not stop. He moves from one task to the next, his hands never still, his body never at rest. The land demands constant attention, constant effort. The plow must be driven deep into the earth. The seeds must be scattered. The weeds must be pulled. It is endless, this cycle of planting and harvesting, of working and sweating, of fighting against a land that gives life while slowly taking in return. As the day wears on, the farmer feels a familiar ache in his bones. His muscles burn with the effort. His back creaks with the weight of his toil. But still, he does not stop. There is no time for rest, no room for weakness. His work is not done, and until it is, he will not stop. The land will not wait for him. The crops will not wait for him. Time moves forward relentless, unyielding, and the farmer must move with it, whether he is ready or not. The sun begins to dip low in the sky, casting the fields in a golden light. The day is nearly over, but the farmer's work is far from finished. There are still animals to tend to, still grain to be harvested, still tasks to be completed. He moves through the fields like a shadow, his body bent with the weight of his labor, his hands stained with the earth that has become his life. His soul, too, is stained with it, stained with the unrelenting work, the quiet sacrifice that defines his existence. When night finally falls, the farmer returns to his small cottage, the weight of the day's labor still heavy on his shoulders. His hands are stiff, his body sore, but his mind is empty, as it always is at the end of a long day. There is no time for reflection, no time for thought. The only thing that matters is rest, the fleeting moment of respite before the cycle begins again. He sits by the fire, the warmth of the flames a brief comfort against the cold that settles into his bones. His wife and children are already asleep, their bodies curled up in the warmth of their shared bed, oblivious to the labor that has filled his day. In the quiet of the night, as the embers of the fire glow softly, the farmer thinks of nothing. There is no space in his mind for dreams, no room for longing. His life is defined by the work he does, by the endless cycle of survival. He is the silent backbone of the kingdom, the invisible man who sustains it all. And though he will never be celebrated, though his name will never be remembered, he will continue, as he always has, until the land demands his last breath. The dirtiest work, the work that no one sees, the work that goes unnoticed, is the work that sustains the world. It is the work that keeps the castle standing, that fills the noblemen's bellies, that ensures the survival of the kingdom. And yet, it is the work that is forgotten, the work that is taken for granted, the work that leaves its mark on the land and on the soul, even as it goes unseen. But the farmer does not complain. He does not ask for recognition. He works because it is his duty, because without him, the world would crumble. And so, he continues day after day, his hands stained with the earth, his body tired from the endless labor, his heart heavy with the knowledge that his work is the dirtiest of all, but it is also the most necessary. Without it, nothing would survive. The dungeon is a place of shadows, of damp stone walls that drip with the coldness of centuries. The air is thick, heavy with the musk of mildew and the sour scent of human despair. Faint torchlight flickers in the dark corners, casting long, trembling shadows that seem to stretch endlessly down narrow stone corridors. The silence here is oppressive, broken only by the occasional groan of the earth settling beneath the weight of history, the whisper of footsteps echoing faintly off the walls, and the slow, labored breathing of those who have been imprisoned here for years. The jailer, a man whose name has long been forgotten by the world, moves through the gloom like a shadow himself. His steps are deliberate, measured, each one falling heavily on the stone floor. His broad shoulders are hunched, his body draped in the unkempt, grimy cloak that has become part of his very being. His eyes, once sharp and full of purpose, are now dull with the weight of his duties, his gaze weary from the years he has spent in this dank, forgotten place. The dungeon is his kingdom, its stench and its silence his only companions. Tonight, like every night, he performs his duties without thought, without emotion. His job is one of unyielding necessity, a task that requires no affection, no understanding, no compassion. He is the keeper of the damned, the one who ensures that the prisoners remain chained in their cells, forgotten by the world above. His hands, rough and callous from years of turning keys and locking doors, are stained with the blood of those who have passed through these iron gates, those who have dared to defy the laws of the land, those whose fate was sealed before they ever set foot in the dungeons. Tonight, there is another prisoner to bring down into the depths. He does not know her name yet, but he will learn it soon enough. The guards above had whispered of her arrival earlier, a woman accused of witchcraft, of casting spells that had turned the tide of a battle in the favor of rebels, of spreading disease through the village with her unnatural powers. She had been taken from her home in the dead of night, dragged through the streets like a wild animal, her hands bound tightly behind her back, her face bruised from the violent struggle. As the jailer approaches the entrance to her cell, he hears the faint sound of her soft sobs, a pitiful noise that seems out of place in this place of misery and violence. He pauses for a moment, his hand resting on the cold iron bars, and listens to the sound of her despair. There is something about it that strikes him, something that lingers in the air long after the noise fades. But he does not allow himself to think on it. The prisoner's fate has already been decided. She is a witch, a threat to the kingdom, and she will remain here until the trial, where the judgment will be handed down. With a sharp, metallic clank, the jailer unlocks the door and steps into the dimly lit cell. The prisoner, a young woman with disheveled hair and wide, fearful eyes, looks up at him. Her face is pale, her lips trembling as she tries to push herself up from the floor. She is weak, broken by the journey here, but there is something in her gaze, something defiant, something that refuses to be cowed by the terror of this place. "Get up," the jailer orders in a low, rough voice. His words carry no kindness, no empathy. They are the words of a man who has long since forgotten what it means to show compassion, a man who has learned to keep his emotions buried deep beneath layers of stone and silence. The woman stares at him for a moment, as though weighing her options, her body trembling with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. Then, slowly, she rises to her feet, her movements unsteady, as if the weight of her own body is too much to bear. Her eyes, still wide with the panic of being trapped in this place, lock onto the jailer's for a brief moment, and he feels a flicker of something, perhaps guilt, perhaps something deeper, pass through him. But it has gone almost as quickly as it came. "Your trial will be soon," the jailer says, his voice cold and detached. "Until then, you will remain here." The woman nods, her expression unreadable. She does not speak, does not plead for mercy. There is no point. The fate of those who find themselves in the dungeon is already sealed long before they are locked away behind these iron bars. The jailer steps back, locking the door with a finality that echoes through the stone walls, and turns away. The woman's sobs follow him, a soft, broken sound that seems to hang in the air, lingering in the shadows long after he has disappeared into the hallway. As the jailer makes his way down the corridor, he finds himself lost in thought, the faint memory of the woman's gaze pulling at him. It is strange. He has seen countless prisoners brought into the dungeon over the years, each one of them terrified, broken in some way. But there was something about this woman. Her eyes were filled with something more than fear. There was a spark of defiance, of strength that he could not ignore. It is a quality he has not seen in years, not since the days when he was a young man, just starting out his role as jailer. Back then, he had not been hardened by the years of labor in the cold, damp cells. He had been driven by a sense of duty, of justice, a belief that he was serving a greater cause. But now, after all these years, all that remains is the work. The prisoner's cries fade as the jailer continues down the hall, each step echoing louder in the silence of the dungeon. He is used to the quiet, to the darkness. This is a life he has built for himself, one of shadows and chains, one of carrying out his duties without question, without hesitation. The prisoners come and go, their names forgotten, their lives reduced a little more than a footnote in the history of the kingdom. They are nothing but ghosts in the stone walls, fleeting and insignificant, their fates sealed before they even arrived. But even in the midst of this cold, impersonal work, the jailer finds himself wondering about the woman. What had she done? Was she truly a witch, as they claimed? Or was she simply a scapegoat, a pawn in a game played by the powerful? He knows the answer does not matter. His duty is not to question, not to seek the truth of these matters. His duty is to keep them locked away, to ensure that they remain forgotten, to perform his work without hesitation. And yet, he cannot shake the feeling that something is wrong. The work has always been dirty. There is no denying that. But this feels different. There is something in the woman's eyes, in her quiet defiance, that unsettles him, that makes him wonder if there is more to her story than he has been told. In the days that follow, the jailer continues his routine, checking the prisoners, ensuring that the chains are secure, that the cells are locked tight. But each time he passes a woman's cell, he feels a flicker of something inside him. Her gaze, her silent plea for something more than punishment, lingers in his mind, pulling at him, gnawing at the edges of his thoughts. He begins to wonder what it would be like if things were different, if he could stand up, question the orders, ask for justice. But he knows better than to entertain such thoughts. The dungeon is a place where thoughts like these can get a man killed. And so he locks the door each night with a sense of finality, pushing the thoughts of the prisoners, of their lives and their stories, deep into the recesses of his mind. It is safer that way. But deep inside, the jailer knows that the dirtiest work is not just the work of locking them away, of ensuring that they remain forgotten. The dirtiest work is the work of the soul, of silencing the doubts, of ignoring the cries for mercy, of burying the truth beneath the weight of the chains. The dirtiest work is the work that no one ever sees, the work that leaves its mark on a man's heart long after the last prisoner has been locked away. And as he walks away from the cell, the jailer carries the weight of that work with him, heavy on his chest, a burden that will never be lifted, not in this life, and perhaps not in the next. The battlefield was a haunting silence after the storm of war had passed, a place where the cries of dying men, the thunder of hooves, and the clash of swords had all faded into eerie stillness. The air still hung heavy with the iron scent of blood, mingling with the bitter tang of smoke that lingered from the burning remains of the camps and tents. The ground was uneven, churned into a grotesque tapestry of mud and gore, where the bodies of fallen soldiers lay scattered like discarded dolls, their once proud forms now grotesque remnants of a life stolen too soon. The echo of a distant battle drum still reverberated in the air, but now it felt like a fading heartbeat, barely perceptible, as if the land itself had succumbed to exhaustion. But as the day wore on and the last remnants of daylight bled from the sky, there was another sound creeping into the quiet. The soft shuffle of feet moving to muck, the faint scrape of metal against stone, the whispered curses of men who had long since lost the luxury of hope. They were the scavengers, the ones who followed behind the armies like shadows. They were not soldiers, not knights who rode in for glory and honor. No, these men were different. They came to clean, to take what was left behind, to remove the traces of death that lingered in the wake of battle. They were the unseen workers, the ones who picked through the carnage and worked tirelessly under the cover of night, when the world above was either too busy with victory or too drunk with defeat to notice the grim tasks at hand. The leader of the scavengers was a man named Piers, a broad-shouldered, thick-jawed figure with callous hands and a weathered face. His skin, tanned and toughened by years in the sun, had become the color of the earth he toiled in. His eyes, however, were hollow, devoid of the light of innocence, for that had been buried long ago in the blood-soaked fields of war. He had learned to see the world as it was, brutal, unforgiving, and merciless. His was the dirtiest work, a work that never received praise, but was as necessary as the victory itself. The scavengers moved between the fallen, lifting the bodies of knights, peasants, and soldiers alike, their hands numb with the cold and the weight of their duty. They stripped the dead of their armor and weapons, taking what they could carry, and tossed the bodies aside like refuse. It was not out of cruelty or disdain, but because this was their role in the aftermath of war, a role that demanded no glory, no recognition, only the assurance that the dead were forgotten. "Get that one," Piers muttered to one of his men, pointing to a body lying half-sunken in the mud. The man, his face covered in grime, nodded and staggered over, his boots squelching as he moved. The soldier they had indicated had once worn the colors of a noble house, but now his finery was stained with blood, his armor dented and scratched from the brutality of battle. His sword, which had once cut to the air with deadly precision, lay discarded beside him, abandoned in the field. The scavenger paused for a moment, looking at the lifeless body of a man who had been a warrior, someone who had ridden into battle with a sense of honor, with dreams of glory. Now, he was little more than a piece of scrap, a casualty of the unrelenting march of time and violence. Piers did not pause to consider the soldier's past, his fate, or his family. Such things were irrelevant in this place. The scavenger's work was simple: collect the dead, strip them of what could be used again, and leave nothing but bones behind. There was no time for ceremony, no space for mourning. It was the dirtiest work because it was the work that ensured that life could go on, that the world could move forward after the blood had been spilled. "Take everything that's worth taking," Piers ordered, his voice gruff, the command a well-practiced rhythm. "Don't waste time. We have more bodies to clear." The scavenger nodded, kneeling beside the fallen soldier, removing his gauntlets with practiced precision. The sound of the armor coming off, the rattle of metal against metal, was sharp in the silence of the battlefield, a cruel reminder of the life that had once filled these fields and the lifelessness that now occupied them. As the men continued their grim work, Piers stood back, his gaze sweeping over the field. The scene before him was one of chaos, but it was a chaos of his own making. The bodies of the fallen soldiers and peasants were strewn across the ground like so much refuse. There was no respect for the dead here, no honor in the task they performed. This was not the work of the victors or the vanquished, but of those who came in after the fact, cleaning up the mess of others. It was not a job most men would want, but it was a necessary one. Without the scavengers, the land would be tainted by the stench of death long after the battle had ended. Piers knew this truth intimately. He had seen men die for causes both noble and foolish, and he had seen their bodies left behind like animals in the muck, as though their lives had meant nothing. He had learned that death, in the end, was the great equalizer. It did not matter if you were a noble knight or a lowly peasant. Once the light had left your body, you were reduced to the same thing, a corpse to be cleaned, a carcass to be disposed of. The sound of a distant bell tolled in the background, a solemn reminder that life continued beyond the battlefield, that the world would move on. But in the midst of the devastation, Piers knew better. The world would move on, yes, but would do so with a memory of what had happened here, with the scars that would never fade from the land or from the souls of those who had witnessed the carnage. The war was over, but its echoes would ring in the hearts of the survivors for as long as they lived. One of the men, a younger scavenger named Alaric, approached Piers cautiously, his eyes scanning the field nervously. "Piers, look at this one," he said, pointing to a knight who had fallen face first into the mud, his helmet still in place, his hands clutching his sword as if he had died mid-battle. Piers walked over, kneeling down to examine the knight's body. The man was dressed in the finest armor, the kind worn only by those of high rank, his coat of arms barely visible beneath the grime and blood that covered it. His sword, still clenched tightly in his hand, had been crafted with care and skill, the hilt adorned with intricate designs. This knight had once been someone of importance, someone who had ridden into battle with pride and a sense of duty. But now, he was just another body to be stripped and discarded. Piers hesitated for a moment. The knight's face, partially exposed beneath the broken helmet, was calm, almost serene. For the briefest of moments, it seemed as though the man were merely sleeping, resting after a long and weary battle. But Piers knew better. There was no peace here, no rest. Death was not a kind sleep. It was a brutal, final end. The scavenger sighed deeply, reaching down to remove the knight's sword. As his fingers brushed against the hilt, he felt a sharp sting of something, a flicker of recognition, perhaps. This man, this knight, had once believed in something: honor, glory, duty. Now all of that had been reduced to this: an empty body, a discarded tool. His armor, his sword, his legacy, they would be taken, sold, melted down, and used again. Nothing would remain of him but the mud in which he had fallen. "Take his armor," Piers said softly, almost to himself. "There's no need to waste it." The work continued throughout the night, the scavengers moving from body to body, taking whatever was worth salvaging, leaving the rest to rot. By the time the sun rose the next morning, the field was clear, save for the few who had not yet been collected, the bodies of the most unfortunate who had been trampled or left to decay before they could be touched. Piers stood at the edge of the field, his gaze sweeping over the land that had been stained by blood and sorrow. It was the dirtiest work, he thought again, but it was necessary. Without it, the world would not continue. The noblemen, the knights, the soldiers, they would return to their castles, their lives, and they would forget the work that had been done here, the work of those like him who had cleaned up the mess left behind. But he did not care. He knew what his role was. He knew his place. The dirtiest work was never recognized. It was always forgotten, always hidden in the shadows of glory and victory. But Piers had long since accepted that. His labor was not for praise. It was for survival. And in the silence of the morning, with the land now free of the dead, Piers turned away, his back to the battlefield, and began the long walk home. The air in the execution chamber is thick with the scent of anticipation, a heavy, suffocating atmosphere that clings to the walls like a second skin. The stone floor, slick with sheen of cold sweat and blood, feels slippery beneath the boots of the executioner. His steps are measured, deliberate, each one an echo in the silence that has settled over the chamber. He stands tall, his broad shoulders casting long shadows on the grimy walls. His hands, callous and scarred from years of work, grip the half of the axe with practiced ease, the polished steel gleaming in the torchlight. This is no place for the faint of heart. The air hums with the tension of an impending judgment, the kind that can only be delivered by the cold, impartial swing of a blade. The executioner's role in the medieval world is not one of honor or glory. It is a duty, one of necessity, but also one of profound isolation. He is neither a man of the law nor a man of compassion. He is a servant of the state, a necessary instrument of justice, yet one whose work is never celebrated, whose name is never spoken with reverence. Today's task is no different from the countless others he has performed throughout his years. He has learned to distance himself from the faces of the condemned, to see them not as individuals, but as bodies, empty vessels that will soon be cast aside. The reason for their executions is irrelevant to him. Whether they are criminals, traitors, or innocents caught in the crossfire of power struggles, they are all the same in the end. They come to him with fear in their eyes, but he is the one who must banish that fear, the one who must deliver the final blow. The condemned man stands at the center of the chamber, his hands bound in front of him, his eyes a mixture of terror and resignation. He is a thief, a man who stole from the wrong person, a man who was caught, tried, and found wanting in the eyes of the law. His fate has already been sealed, and now, as the executioner approaches him, there is no escape. The man's gaze flickers nervously between the executioner and the axe. His mouth trembles with the words he dares not speak. He has heard the stories of a swift, merciless justice delivered by the executioner's blade. But none of those stories have prepared him for this moment. The executioner feels a fleeting twinge of something, sympathy, perhaps, or the weight of his role. But it is gone almost before he recognizes it. He has long since learned to suppress such feelings. Sympathy has no place in this work, just as fear and hesitation have no room here. His job is not to be kind, not to show mercy. His job is to carry out the will of the law, to make sure that the sentence is fulfilled, regardless of the human cost. He takes a deep breath, the cool air filling his lungs, and then exhales slowly. The chamber is silent once more, save for the soft rustle of the condemned man's clothing as he shifts nervously. The executioner raises the axe, feeling the familiar weight of the steel in his hand. His muscles, honed over years of practice, coil like a spring, ready to deliver the final stroke. The condemned man shudders, his eyes wide with fear, his mouth moving soundlessly as he mutters a prayer or a plea for mercy. The executioner does not hear it. His mind is elsewhere, focused entirely on the task at hand. He has seen hundreds like this man, perhaps more, and in all that time he has never wavered, never faltered. There is no room for doubt. There is no room for hesitation. With a swift motion, the executioner swings the axe down, its sharp edge slicing through the air with a deadly whistle. The blade strikes its mark with a sickening thud, the sound of bone and flesh meeting steel echoing in the chamber. The condemned man collapses, his body jerking violently as the life drains from it. There is no pain, no struggle. The executioner has ensured that, for a moment, the room is still. The flickering light of the torches dances on the blood-soaked floor, casting long, wavering shadows on the stone walls. The task is done. The deed is complete. The executioner steps back, his heart steady, his breath even. He does not feel pride, nor does he feel shame. He simply feels the emptiness that comes with the work, a hollow, unfeeling sensation that has become as much a part of him as the blade he wields. In the medieval world, the executioner is a figure both feared and reviled, a necessary evil whose presence is often invisible but whose work is inescapable. He is neither a man of high status nor a man of low birth. He exists in a space apart from society, a man who walks between the realms of life and death, carrying out the will of those who hold power over others. He is a figure whose hands are forever stained with blood, whose heart beats in rhythm with the swing of his axe. But the truth is, the executioner is not a monster. He is a man like any other, bound by his duty, bound by the rules of the world he inhabits. The weight of his work is not something he carries lightly, but it is something he carries nonetheless. For in a world where justice is meted out through violence, the executioner is the instrument of that violence, the one who ensures that the law is enforced no matter the cost. Yet even as the executioner prepares to leave the chamber, his work done, a part of him wonders, just for a moment, if there is something more to this life, if there is some way to escape the grim weight of his duty. But the thought is fleeting. The world is as it is. There is no room for softness, no space for doubt. The executioner will go on, performing his role as he always has. He will clean the axe, prepare for the next condemned soul, and wait for the next call to deliver judgment. It is the dirtiest work, unseen, unappreciated, but necessary. As he steps out into the cold night, the sound of the axe clinking against his side, the executioner knows that his work will never end. He will always be needed. And though he may never be celebrated, never be praised for what he does, he will continue, as he always has, to do what is required of him. The dirtiest work is often the work that no one sees. It is the work that keeps society in balance, that ensures the laws are upheld, that makes sure that justice is delivered. It is the work of the executioner, the work of the soldier, the work of the scavenger, the work of the laborer. It is the work that no one remembers, the work that is never written in songs or stories, but the work that makes the world turn. And so, the executioner walks away from the chamber, the blood still fresh on his hands, the weight of his role heavy in his heart. He will return to the shadows, to the unseen corners of the world, to the place where only the necessary work is done. It is a thankless life, but it is his life. It is the dirtiest work, and it will never be forgotten by those who must do it, and by those who are left to live in the world that has been shaped by it. The air is thick with the scent of decay, a pungent, unmistakable odor that lingers in the lungs like something alive and relentless. It clings to the skin, to the clothes, to the very walls of the tannery. The ground beneath the tanner's boots is wet, slick with water and brine, with a remnant of animal flesh that had been stripped, peeled, and soaked. There is a hum in the air, a constant buzz of flies, of rot, of life clinging to what it can in the midst of the death that surrounds it. In the dim light of the workshop, shadows flicker and move like ghosts, and the steady rhythm of work echoes through the room, a dirge of sorts for the animals whose skins line the walls. The tanner is a man of silence, his hands moving deftly as they soak, scrape, and stretch the hides that are his only companions. His name is not important, not to the villagers, not to the merchants, not to the noblemen whose wealth depends on the leather goods he produces. To them, he is little more than a figure in the background, a nameless, faceless worker whose labor is hidden behind the veil of his filthy craft. The hides come to him raw, thick with blood, matted with fur, and carry with them the unmistakable scent of death. The tanner knows this scent all too well. It is his daily companion, a smell that never fades, no matter how many times he scrubs his hands, his tools, his face. The work is dirty as any labor can be, and it takes a toll on the body, on the spirit, and on the soul. But the tanner does not stop. He cannot stop. There is no time for reflection, no time for regret. His hands are already deep into the work, and he has learned to move through it mechanically, without thought, without feeling. The hides are soaked in vats filled with brine, lye, and urine, a foul concoction that is the foundation of the tanning process. The liquid is thick, yellowed with age, and it bubbles faintly in the large wooden troughs. The tanner dips his hands into it without hesitation, his skin already toughened by years of contact with the chemicals. The warmth of the liquid is almost comforting, the heat of the brine soothing his weathered hands as he moves the hides through it. The stench is overwhelming, but he has grown used to it. To him, it is the smell of survival, of work, of necessity. Each hide is different, each one with its own character, its own texture, its own story. Some are thick, strong, meant for boots or armor. Others are delicate, thin and soft, destined for gloves or fine garments. The tanner handles each one with care, stretching and scraping it with the precision of a craftsman, with the understanding that the success of his work relies not just on skill, but on a deep, unspoken connection to material itself. He works the hide like a sculptor works clay, pulling, kneading, and coaxing it into desired shape, but it is not without its pain. Every now and then, The tanner catches a stray needle or a sharp edge, and the pain shoots through his hand, but he simply pulls away, grits his teeth, and returns to the task at hand. There is no room for discomfort here. There is no room for weakness. The tools of the trade are scattered across the room, a collection of knives, scrapers, and hammers, each one showing the signs of years of use. Some are worn down, the edges chipped from the endless hours of scraping, the endless pressure of leather under steel. The tanner knows each one by feel, by instinct. He does not need to look at them to know which one is right for the task. He picks up a long, curved knife, its blade darkened with use, and begins to scrape the flesh from the hide. The noise it makes is a low, grinding sound, the leather resisting the blade for a moment before it gives way, revealing the pale, smooth underside. The flesh comes off in strips, falling in wet clumps to the ground, leaving behind a soft, supple skin that will soon be transformed into something new, something useful. But even as he works, the tanner knows that there is no real joy in this craft. It is a labor of necessity, not of passion. The work is repetitive, monotonous, and unglamorous. It is the work of the invisible laborer, the one who makes the goods that others will wear, the ones who will be praised for their fine leather gloves or boots. But the tanner is invisible. His hands are the hands of the worker, the hands of the one who toils in the muck, who creates, but never receives a recognition. As the day wears on, the tanner moves from one vat to the next, his work uninterrupted, his mind quiet. He knows there is no point in wishing for a different life. The work must be done, and he is the one who must do it. The leather must be tanned, the hides transformed into something usable. There is no glamour in this, no romance. It is dirty work, and the tanner wears the dirt like a second skin. The smell of wet leather begins to fill the air as the hides are stretched and softened, the roughness of the flesh giving way to the smooth, supple texture of the finished product. The tanner's hands are stained with the brine and chemicals, the blood of the animals still clinging to his skin. It is a laborious process, and he has long since stopped noticing the way the work affects his body. His fingers are stiff from years of scraping, his back aching from hours of bending over the vats. His face is marked with the grime of his labor, the dirt embedded into his skin from years of handling hides and chemicals. At times, the tanner wonders about the lives of those who are the products he makes, noblemen and merchants who slip into their fine leather boots without a second thought, never considering the man whose hands made them. He wonders if they understand the cost of the leather, the labor that went into it. But he knows the answer. They do not. They do not see him, nor do they see the work. To them, he is invisible. And yet, in the quiet moments when the work is done and the vats are empty, when the room is silent save for the sound of the occasional drip of water or the buzz of fly, the tanner allows himself a moment of reflection. It is fleeting, but it is there, a brief flicker of something that is neither pride nor resentment, but simply an acknowledgement of the work he has done. He has made something out of nothing, something that will be used, something that will be worn, something that will serve a purpose. For the tanner, that is enough. The dirtiest work is often the most essential. It is the work that no one notices, the work that no one thanks you for. It is a labor that keeps the world moving, that ensures that life continues in a world where survival depends on the goods that are made and the hands that make them. The tanner is part of that invisible cycle, the cycle that keeps the economy running, that ensures the wealth of others is realized. It is dirty work, to be sure, but it is necessary work, work that keeps the wheels of society turning, even as those who do it remain hidden in the shadows. The tanner looks down at his hands, his rough, scarred hands, and he knows that they will never be clean. They will never be free of the stains of his work. But perhaps, in the end, that is the way it is meant to be. The dirtiest work is the work that never ends, the work that is never acknowledged, but that keeps the world functioning all the same. And for the tanner, that is enough. The miller works long after the sun has set, working by the light of a flickering candle, his movements becoming slower, more deliberate, but no less essential. The mill is his kingdom, and in it he is king and servant both. He is the one who makes the bread, who ensures the survival of the village, but no one ever thanks him. No one ever sees the work he does. When the farmer comes with his grain, there is no pleasantry. There is no greeting. The transaction is simple. The grain is weighed, the flour is ground, and the miller takes his toll. It is a thankless job, one that requires little recognition, but it is a necessary one. Without the miller, there would be no bread, no food for the village. The miller is the invisible hand that keeps the world turning, and yet, like the millstone, he is taken for granted. He is the engine that drives the community, the one who turns a grain into sustenance, yet he remains unseen, a shadow behind the flour. The toll that grinding grain takes on the miller's body is immense. His hands are rough, his skin calloused from years of handling grain and flour. His fingers are cracked, often bleeding from the constant abrasion of the millstones, the hard edges of the sacks, and the dust that settles on his skin like a fine powder. His back is bent from years of bending over the stones, and his lungs are filled with the fine flour dust that hangs in the air, making every breath feel like a struggle. His eyes, too, are tired, irritated from the constant exposure to the dust and the dim light of the mill. Yet, there is a strange rhythm to the work, a quiet satisfaction in the simplicity of it all. The miller is a master of his craft, even though no one else sees it. He knows the intricacies of the millstone, knows how to adjust it to create the finest flour. He knows the exact moment when the grain is ground to perfection, when the flour is soft and fine, ready to be used. It is a skill, a craft that he has honed over the years, and though it may be dirty work, it is also important work. The flour he produces will feed the village, will be turned into bread, into sustenance, into life. Without him, the village would starve. But the miller's work is not just physical. It is spiritual, too, in a way. The millstone, with its constant grinding, becomes a metaphor for time itself, for the inevitability of life. Each turn of the stone is a moment that is passed. Each sack of grain that is ground down is a life lived, a life that will be consumed by others. The miller is part of that cycle, part of the endless flow of life and death. He grinds a grain, but he also grinds away at his own soul, at his own sense of self-worth. He is necessary, but he is unseen. His work sustains others, but often feels as though it is for nothing, as though no one notices, no one cares. As the night deepens, the miller takes a break. Leaning against the wall of the mill, his tired eyes gazing out at the stars through the small window. The world outside is still, but inside the mill there is a constant hum, a constant grind. It is a reminder of the work he does, of the endless cycle that keeps the world turning. And though he may never be celebrated, though he may never be seen for the labor he performs, the miller knows that his work is important. It is the dirtiest work, the most unglamorous work, the work that no one thinks about, but it is necessary work, and without it, the village would not survive. The miller's hands rest on the rough, worn wood of the mill, and for a moment, he feels a strange peace. The work is endless, yes, but it is also his work. It is his life. And though it may be dirty, though it may go unnoticed, it is the work that sustains everything. And for the miller, that is enough.